Hey guys, Lucas here in Vintage Surplus, and today we're going to cover U.S. Army camouflage from 1981 to present, so 2022. We're just going to go over, in general, the camouflage patterns worn, maybe a little bit of history about each one, and just so you know a little bit more about each of the camo patterns you're looking at. So 1981 is the date when the U.S. Army as a force adopted a camouflage pattern for everybody to wear at once. Now, was there camouflage before that? Yes. It was limited use, and you only saw certain people wearing this here and there and that and this. But the one piece of camouflage you can say definitively that pretty much everybody wore was helmet covers. And mainly that comes down to the Mitchell pattern helmet cover worn on the M1 steel helmets. And now what I got here is an example of that. It's a reversible helmet cover, and on one side you have the wine leaf pattern, and the other side you have the Highland clouds kind of version. So you can reverse it, and it's good for multiple environments. Main use you're going to see this in is Vietnam. So you're going to see this all over Vietnam, mainly in the wine leaf pattern. And they use it on top of their helmets. It was here and there on some other equipment, but for the most part, limited to helmet covers. So let's move on to another pre-1981 camo pattern and talk about that a little bit and what that evolved into. Okay, so another not pre-1981 camouflage you would see is ERDL. So this is ERDL, this is the green dominant. You would have seen this throughout Vietnam, worn mostly by the Marine Corps, Ranger Regiment, and Special Operations Forces, so it's SF, Navy SEALs, all that jazz. It's a pretty good camouflage. If it looks familiar, there's a reason, and we'll go into that later. But it was developed around the post-World War II, going into the 1960s, and then issued out. Not widespread within the U.S. Army, but it was worn. And we're going to see what this evolved into, and then what it evolved into later. All right, so what ERDL evolved into is more ERDL. This is RDF ERDL, late generation ERDL, ERDL version 2. Goes by a lot of different names, but this is just an evolution ERDL. It's more similar to the brown dominant ERDL. If you do some research, you're going to find that. But it's a pretty good camouflage. It worked out. Mainly, the RDF comes from the Rapid Deployment Force. That was a small kind of unit or selection of units within the U.S. Army that were tasked out for rapid deployment during the late 70s, early 80s, before our first camouflage was adopted. It's pretty good. You don't see it really anymore. You'll see the coats, pants, helmet covers, not much else in this camouflage pattern. All right, it's 1981, and we have the adoption of the Woodland camouflage. Now, if this looks sort of familiar, that's because it is. It's the last evolution of ERDL, and they changed some of the black. It's pretty much what they changed, and it's more brown dominant. Now, this is the first camouflage that was adopted by the Army for widespread issue throughout the entire force. And that's why we started with 1981, because it's the first time camouflage, everybody was wearing it. They replaced all the ERDLs, all the OD fatigues, everything else, and now everybody was in this for the training uniform and their standard combat use. You'll see that the uniforms, obviously, pants, blouses, hats, helmet covers, and then select gear will start getting issued in Woodland camouflage. Now, it's also referred to as BDU. BDU comes from the fact that the BD uniform was introduced at the same time. So because of the close relationship with Woodland camouflage and BDU, it's referred to as BDU camo as well. You also see it referred to as M81. M81 is not official either, but it comes from the fact that it was adopted in 81. So you see M81 as another term to refer to Woodland camouflage. All right, so next we have 6-color desert camouflage. Now this is actually developed in the 60s and adopted in the 1970s. It was made as all the stuff that's going on in the Middle East during the 60s, the U.S. Army was like, hey, we need desert camouflage in case you have to go to the Middle East. And so you wouldn't see it adopted until the 80s though, but it was around before Woodland camouflage. Now it's a 6-color desert camouflage, pretty simple. It was made more for the Southwest American landscape. So once it was actually used in the Middle East, it was found to not be quite as effective as they thought it would be, and it was quickly replaced. You'll see it's mostly used in the first Gulf War and into the early 90s when we had American forces in Somalia, places like that. But it was quickly replaced, and otherwise it's pretty cool camouflage. Going to work best in Southwest America. All right, so next we have a camo. It's not really a camo. This was adopted in the early 90s, and this is Desert Night camo. Now what this was intended to do is defeat first generation Soviet night vision equipment. And it was quickly found that by the time it was introduced and adopted and issued out, Soviet NVGs had gone beyond what this was capable of defeating at the end of the day. So it was quickly kind of just kicked out of service. It's got a dark green background, some gridding and some blotches in there. It looks cool, but it's not really effective. You could use it at night, but at the end of the day, not really much use to it. Now, this is issued in a parka, a fishtail parka that's 3/4 length, and then pants. That's about all it was issued in. No gear, no equipment, nothing else accessory-wise, maybe some booty caps. That's about it. And then it was quickly out of service and replaced. Not even replaced. You don't really see this anywhere else other than some randos wearing it around every now and then. All right, we have our next camouflage now. So I talked about how 6-color desert camo was quickly found not to be as effective as they wanted, so they replaced it with the 3-color desert camouflage. You would have seen this started issuing at you've seen a few guys in Desert Storm with this in 91, and then throughout all the 90s and into the 2000s. It's a 3-color camouflage. It works good in the sparsely vegetated desert environments. It's in the same BDU kind of cut. This one's a little different, but overall was issued out normal. All the accessories, pants, helmet covers, hats, pouches start to be in it, backpacks, everything else. All right, so now it's 2004. So from 1981 to 04, we saw Woodland camouflage as a standard uniform across the U.S. Army with the desert variations as well. Now in 01, the Marine Corps adopted their digital camouflage MARPAT in both Woodland and desert variations. And the U.S. Army was like, let's jump on that train. And you see UCP, the Universal Camouflage Pattern, adopted. This is UCP, also known as ACU, kind of like how Woodland camouflage is called BDU because it was adopted along with that uniform cut. ACU is this uniform cut with different style slanted chest pockets, no waist pockets, and the way the shoulder pockets are with the hook and loop. So it's commonly called UCP or ACU interchangeably. Now, if you know anything about ACU, didn't really work out. This gray digital pattern is just not quite suited as well as I thought it would be, and it was pretty quickly replaced by other camouflages. Overall, it's got kind of an appeal, not so much. It is kind of neat looking, but it didn't work out anywhere near as well as I thought it would. All right, so now it's about 2010, and the Army was finding UCP did not work out. It was being used in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it just had not as good of results anywhere near as what they thought it would. It worked okay in an urban environment, but outside of an urban environment, it was ineffective. So they looked for a solution, and they went to Multicam. Now, Multicam was actually a competitor to UCP during the 04 trials for that universal camouflage pattern, and went back to it, and they're like, let's just use this in Afghanistan, because Iraq was pretty much over, and Afghanistan is where everybody was at, and so they started issuing Multicam. And it was also called OEF-P, so Operation Enduring Freedom Pattern. Now, it's a pretty good pattern. You see it everywhere nowadays. Everybody's got it. Pouches, gear, any accessory you could think of. And a lot of countries using this or very close, just kind of variations of it. You'll see across, like, the UK has their MTP, which is this, but sort of their DPM kind of shapes. So it's a good camouflage pattern. It's fairly universal. You see the arid, the tropic, the black, the winter, and your standard multicam. So it's got some variations specific to areas, but in general, it works pretty much everywhere. A lot better than UCP did. Okay, so we're at our last and our present camouflage pattern 2022 for the U.S. Army. Now, they wanted to use multicam across the force and adopt it as a general camouflage pattern. They already had a bunch of gear from Afghanistan deployments issuing out to soldiers, but the licensing fee and some other admin stuff said, nope, we can't use multicam, we need our own pattern. So they went back. They went back when the UCP was being trialed, and they found that Scorpion was a pattern that was trialed as well, and it's a slight variation on multicam. It's overall fairly much identical, but there's a little bit here and changes here and there. But yeah, so you can use it interchangeably with multicam gear, not within the military issue-wise as far as uniforms, but gear on top of it looks pretty much the same way. Right now, you're seeing it across everything. You have every accessory for it. Pouches are being made for it now within the Army for issue, and it's just going to be our camouflage pattern within the U.S. Army for the foreseeable future until somebody has another great idea and needs a bullet on their OER. But yeah, that's the U.S. Army camouflage pattern from 1981, a little bit before 1981 to 2002. So if you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. If I got anything wrong, please correct me in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe for future videos like this.